Welcome back, Adventure Buddies. I'm Anastasia, a trauma therapist, owner of Happy Mind Wellness Company, a Colorado based therapy practice, and creator of this podcast. My mission is to build a community of acceptance and authenticity, and you're all welcome here. I am so grateful that you decided to join me on this journey of insight. As a disclaimer, there may be swearing in this podcast, but sometimes we get caught up in the human experience, it happens, and sometimes we can talk about difficult or activating topics. So maybe put on some headphones if you need to, and remember that support exists for you if you want it. Many of us have experienced breakups, which is what we're going to talk about today. Whether it was a breakup with a partner or a friend, whether it was amicable or messy, whether you ended the relationship or just separated for now, it all relates to grief and loss. Today, I am once again joined by one of my favorite life adventure buddies, Sadie. She recently went through a breakup, and together we talk about the ebbs and flows, radical acceptance of our experiences, we compare breakups, and talk about the confusing roller coaster that is breaking up. We are both excited to share our stories with you today, so let's get started and see if we can build some insight. Great. Welcome back, Sadie.
Thank you. I'm excited to have a conversation. I apologize if my audio is not the best, but
Nah,
we'll
it's
make the
great.
best of it.
It's great. And today we are talking about a complicated, messy topic that is probably going to take us all over the place, which is, I feel like, a great example of what the experience is. And so we are going to be talking about breakups today. How to get through it, how to navigate it, what it could potentially look like, because we've had a couple
Yep.
in a lot of different ways, and each one has been its own unique experience. So yeah, as as I've introduced this, I'm curious where your brain goes first.
Well, I'm just thinking like 'tis the season. I know so many people that are going through breakups right now, including myself. Yeah, I think it's just like reflecting back on it's such a crazy, weird experience. And like you kind of said, like each breakup is so different. But yeah, I think I'm mostly just like reflecting back on my own most recent one. And just kind of like also how it ties to like some of the grief work I've done in my like internship for grad school, and just like I don't know, the new perspective it gave me in that way, and just how like messy and confusing and great it's all been. And I say great, but it's like it has been such a growth process.
Well, and I
Yeah.
appreciate you named tying it to kind of your grief internship because it really normalizes that the mess is a part of the process. Because even if you are literally doing grief work for people, you have the knowledge, you are maybe like the expert in it in some way. That doesn't mean that you can skip ahead.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have asked like, oh, does doing grief like has doing grief counseling helped? And it's like, yes, but not in the way you think. It hasn't made it less painful. It has given me permission to allow myself to be messy and like normalize it for myself, rather than being like, I can't believe I'm going, like, I'm feeling this, or I can't believe I'm crying this much or whatever. It's just like, nope, this is normal. Like, I'm just gonna let myself be messy. I'm gonna let myself feel it. Yeah, it's not about like, oh, it helped and that it made it less painful. It's like, no, it's still really fucking painful, but I'm just allowing myself to feel it and express
Yeah.
it.
It's not that you can, again, skip the pain. It's that you now know how to let yourself feel that pain, even if you don't want to be feeling it.
Yeah, and to also trust that like the pain is part of the process and part of the healing, and that it's like it sucks, but yeah, it's like, but if you ignore it or you push it down or try to just like be happy, it's like it's going to demand to be felt at some point. It's just painful and messy, and yeah, all the things you just said.
Yeah. So I'm curious, as you've been sitting and reflecting back and kind of looking at the arc of this breakup of yours that you've
Hmm.
recently had, I don't even know how I'm trying to ask this question. Like, what was the general trend or theme of your process of like y deciding to break up or deciding to break up, deciding that this is it, not deciding and it happening to you, being able to accept it or not accept it. Like, what was the general trend that you personally experienced, knowing that we
Yeah,
don't have like your ex's perspective here? It is 100% yours today.
yeah. Woo, it's all mine.
All
Yeah, I
yours.
think from my perspective, it was definitely like, we'd had some conversations, so it wasn't like out of the blue necessarily. So there was like a little bit of, back and forth for a short amount of time, but still a lot of hope that like, oh, things will work out, or I can work on this or whatever. And then there was just like, throughout that process, I was constantly checking in with myself and being like, does this feel like a yes? Does this relationship feel like a yes? Does breaking up feel like a yes or a no or whatever? And then there was just like one conversation we had where I was like, it's a no. And it feels like a really clear no. And there's no like changing my mind about this. Like it just feels like it's what needs to be done, even though like I don't want to break up. I don't want this to be the outcome, but I can just feel that this is where this is headed. And then it was just kind of like life was busy, and it sounds weird, but like there wasn't really time for a breakup right then. So it was like, okay, like I know that this is coming, but I'm also fully committed to being in this relationship until the end. So I'm going to keep showing up. I'm going to keep being in this relationship until we have this conversation. And then, as you know, like I also was like, I'm open to this conversation going differently than I think it's going to go. Like I'm open to staying in this relationship if it feels right in the moment, or like, from this conversation, whatever. But yeah, then I just woke up one morning and was like, today's the day, having this conversation. I don't know exactly what the outcome's going to be, but we're probably going to break up. Spoiler alert, we broke up. It was really
What?
amicable. I know. It was really amicable. It was really like the nicest breakup I've ever gone through.
I say, I heard the story. It really was just like the perfect breakup, if there is such a thing.
Yeah, it was like really sweet and supportive, and yeah, just like a really like a safe breakup. Like
Mhm.
there was no like yelling, or it was like very sweet and supportive. And yeah, and then cue the heartbreak.
Well, wait, let's slow
Yeah,
down just
yeah,
for a second. I want to react to two things you said before we shift into the actual pain part of it
yeah,
all. There were two pieces that stuck out to me. The first is like, I kind of have an idea of if we're going to have a problem, this is what it's going to
yeah,
be. And the constantly checking in with yourself around it while being open for it to go in any direction.
yeah,
So, like, the constant monitoring and checking in of, I kind of feel like this might be an issue for us, especially as like time continues and we settle into this, but like maybe I'll be surprised,
yeah,
right? And this resonates for me so much. And maybe not everybody has that experience. Maybe everybody just like, some people just dive in head first and they're like, oh my God, it's going to be perfect. And there's never going to be anything wrong. And then they're surprised when things go wrong. Like that might be an experience. I am totally a planner and an overthinker. And every relationship, especially since I'm a couples therapist, I can't help but go, "Ooh, that's an interesting pattern that I'm having
yeah,
or that we're having. Like, where is this gonna go?" And in some relationships, I've had that little like inkling in the back of my head, and it goes exactly the way I'm worried it will,
yep,
and it doesn't work
mm,
out. But like as you and I have talked about in my current relationship, I've had some of those moments of like, okay, these are the three things I need to be aware of. And then I've been surprised the majority of the time that we've been able to talk about it and be intentional. And like, it's kind of cool having this split experience.
yeah, yeah. I was also, I don't know, as you were talking, I was thinking about like how different this experience was from my last breakup that I've had, where I knew that it wasn't going to work for much longer, but I just came from this place of not wanting to hurt the other person. And so I just ignored that, like, knowing or my own truth and well being and whatever. Yeah. So, yeah, that went on for a really long time. And I ended up just like really, I mean, I think really hurting both of us in the end. So I think this time around, it was like, yeah, I wanted to be aware of like what felt like a yes or a no to me. And there were a lot of times when I was like, I don't know. but I'm just gonna play it out and see how it goes and be open to, how things might shift or change, but also trusting like I was gonna honor for me when it felt like this is a non-negotiable that I've reached. And if the other person isn't able or willing to like meet me in that, or to like hear me or see me, or for us to be able to work together to change the dynamic, then it's like, okay, then that's not going to work. And so I think I part of that was then just when I started the conversation, it wasn't like, hey, I think we need to break up. It was, hey, this thing is really hurting and bothering me. And like, I'm really angry and upset about this. So we started from that place. And then from there, it evolved to like us both being like, I don't think this relationship is working anymore.
So authentic with it all.
Yeah, which is like also really like sad and heartbreaking because it's like, oh, wow, we do have like a such great, we have really good communication and a lot of safety, and it just like isn't working right now, and like all of that is true. And yeah, so then cue the heartbreak.
Yeah, I feel like you said, it is so sad that you had a great relationship and you did care about and respect each other so much that it really goes to show that that respect, that care, that love, if you're being intentional, not just for the other person, but for you, there might come a point where the answer is we are not meant to be together forever. Like we will both be better off and happier if we are not together, even though that love and care is still there.
Yeah, and it is like so hard to believe all of that like once you make the decision, and once all the pain and grief comes in, then it's like, was this the right decision?
There's
Like,
so many questions and doubt in that pain space. So yeah, tell me about the heartbreak.
yeah, so as you know, I don't know, it feels kind of weird to admit, but like this is like my first heartbreak. I'm 31 and it's like my
Like
first heartbreak.
your deep, real, true heartbreak.
Yeah, so also for further context, my 15-year-old dog died in March, and the only reason I'm bringing that up is because I feel like that was probably one of the like the deeper grief experiences I've had, and it was very recent. And so having had that experience a few months prior and then going into the heartbreak, I was just like, oh, this is grief. Like, this is identical. Like, this heartbreak is just like a huge loss. And I think like I've also come to this point too of like, it's not like, oh, she broke my heart. It's like my heart broke because I lost something I really loved and cared for. It's not something like that was done to me, or, it's not nothing like that. It's just like, oh, I lost something that I really cared deeply for. So like of course I'm going to be going through this heartbreak and this grief. And yeah, and so I think like for me like a big part of that was just like acknowledging that like this is a really big grief, and then also just like really allowing myself to feel that even though it felt like out of control and kind of scary and like it was overwhelming a lot of the time. And I cried a lot that first month. um I tracked it. I'm not going to tell you how many days I cried because that seems silly, but
There were a lot of tears because you let yourself feel what you were feeling as you were feeling it.
yeah. And it was like, yeah, it was really intense. And I think before, I'd heard people be like, you have to get your heart broken at least once, there's nothing like it. And I was like, I don't know about that. And I'm like, I get it though. Like, yes, it's grief, but it is slightly different because it's like, oh, this person still exists, and I just like the wanting to reach out and the wanting to be with them and knowing that they're still out in the world doing things, and wanting to know how they are and wanting to reconnect. And like all of those are such strong desires and pulls that don't exist with like some other forms of grief where it's like, oh, like I don't have to wonder what they're up to. Like
Hmm.
this is like, oh, but she still exists and I might run into her. And yeah.
Well, and as you're saying that, what's coming up for me is because of how amicably it ended and the fact that you two both cared about each other still and you still like who you are as people. It wasn't this huge explosion, but it also wasn't necessarily this like, oh, we are not a fit at all. It was just this is a non-negotiable versus like my last bigger breakup, I spent most of the relationship grieving what it was and hoping that the potential would become a reality, but it never did. So, like, by the time that relationship ended, I felt like I had tried and done and processed everything possible to make it work. And so there was zero doubt in my mind that we needed to end it versus like, well, maybe we could change, or maybe we'll have this moment, or like maybe this could happen. Like in the heartbreak of it all, this push and pull between, no, we broke up for a reason, and that reason was extremely valid, and then the next day being like, no, maybe I should call her, maybe it isn't real, maybe like this could happen still,
Yep.
because of how it ended. And there was still this room for almost openness with it.
Yeah, 100%. And like also, similarly with my last breakup before this, it was very similar to you of like it was done a long time before it actually ended. And so like I'd processed a lot. I didn't ever experience the yearning or the wanting to reconnect. Very different set of circumstances, very different relationship. And so this was like new of like this like really intense yearning and wanting to connect and missing. And I think a big part of it too was I would still have days where I'd really hope like, oh, maybe after some time apart or after we both work on whatever, like we'll be able to come back together and work things out, or things will be different, or this non-negotiable we'll be able to work through. And I think a big part of this process has taught me like, it's so easy to have that hope and then immediately like shame myself for it or judge myself or tell myself I shouldn't have the hope because then I'll just be let down. But a big part of this process was learning to be like, it's okay, I need hope today.
Yeah.
Which I think is actually something that you kind of helped help
I
me
think
get
I
to.
said that at least once per phone call in the midst of the heartbreak of like, we just gotta hope today. I'll have hope with you. Maybe it'll happen.
And that's like kind of, yeah, that's kind of like become my mantra throughout this in some ways, is like even today I found myself being like a little bit hopeful, and I was like, okay, I just need to hope a little bit today, and that's okay. Like I think the difference is though not getting fully attached to it of like this is absolutely going to happen, but just being like, okay, I just need like a little bit of hope to get through this moment right now of missing or wanting or whatever. And I don't have to stay attached to that, but like I can allow it to kind of carry me through this wave until I find like some more groundedness in myself or whatever it might be. Um, and I think like also a big experience in this heartbreak that's been really comforting, I guess, in some way, is that like even in all of the sadness and the pain and everything, like I have still felt like centered and with myself the entire time. And I feel like so much of it too is like grief and heartbreak has been asking me like how can I meet it, right? How is it asking me to meet it today? And sometimes that's being really angry, sometimes it's being hopeful, sometimes it's being really sad and having despair, but it's just being adaptable and like allowing for it to express itself the way it needs without like fighting it or controlling it or trying to change it.
I love this idea. It's so powerful. And just, you starting it with the hope of, well, maybe I just need to hope today.
Yeah.
And then the next day, it's like, well, maybe I need to be in the big sad today. And
Mm-hmm.
the day after that, maybe I need to be pissed today,
Yeah.
and just letting it be whatever it is. And this is true not just for breakups, but for life, right? Like
Yeah.
we have really stressful experiences, especially if you're an adult with tons of responsibilities. Like nothing is going to go exactly right all of the time. And so when you're stressed, I always like to take that opportunity of like, maybe I need a little bit of stress today. Maybe I need
Yeah.
to be a little dissociated today. Maybe I need to just shut down and be numb today. Like maybe that
And
is
I
my path.
I think it's also important too then whenever like joy shows up or happiness or whatever it like sometimes it shows up and you're like I shouldn't be happy right now because all of like I have all of this loss or I'm going through heartbreak. But I think also allowing like actually I think I need to be happy right now, and like that's okay too. And it's not like dishonoring something or like I'm not like ignoring the healing process. It's like no, like I joy is helping my nervous system to be able to handle the next big wave of difficult emotions, and vice versa, like also recognizing too like oh these like really hard big sad days Like, I've gotten to the point now whenever I have like two big sad days in a row, I'm like, I'm gonna feel so fucking good tomorrow. Like, like
Yeah.
it's like I feel like shit right now, but like in 2 days, I'm gonna feel so fucking good. And it's been true. It's like, so you just gotta feel like let yourself really be kind of dramatic and like feel these really big things, and then it like makes way for your nervous system to kind of find equilibrium by like allowing more joy and ease back in.
That reminds me of the fact that this year I'm trying to embrace becoming more unhinged.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like I'm so careful about how I show up and how I present myself to people. And like I can be unhinged in my, like in the closet by myself. I can bawl my eyes out. I can like ugly animal cry and scream. But as soon as
Hmm.
somebody is in front of me, I'm like, no, I have to protect myself and like I have to show up perfectly. And so I'm working on that. Just maybe you gotta feel the big feelings today, whether it's like unadulterated joy or just being so pissed off. They're like, I'm gonna like snap at everyone today. Just like, can I be just a little unhinged in
Yeah.
what my experience is?
I'm laughing because like through both like the loss of my dog and this breakup, I've become a public crier. Which is like I remember it's just funny to look back and be like when I first went to therapy, I couldn't even cry in front of my therapist because it was like too embarrassing. And now I like will just be like, you know what? I'm an adult with like like with responsibilities and errands, and like we just got to be efficient. Like if I need to cry and I need to get groceries, I am pairing those tasks up, and we are just gonna cry at the grocery store. It's
I
just
have
like
so done that before as well.
it's like such a like it's like kind of freeing, and also it's just like there's something that I find really funny about how other people respond to that. And I'm like not that I find joy in like making other people uncomfortable, but just in like I am not crying to be rescued. I'm not crying to like be comforted or whatever. It's like I'm crying for efficiency.
Yeah.
Like
Well, and just like you need to cry and you need to be where you are. The
yeah.
last big public cry that I had actually was in Chicago when we were visiting Elliot and like his friends and family. And we were at the top of Chicago 360. And our friend who was with us was talking about the differences between vacations and trips. And I just said, yeah, actually, I don't think I've had a vacation. I've only had trips. And then I just start bawling because I'm like exhausted and I'm overwhelmed and I need a vacation and I'm not getting one. And
Yeah.
I cried for at least 5 minutes, maybe 10. And like our friend and Elliot just sat there with me, just like, yeah, okay, you're gonna cry. Like there was no discomfort, there was no like shame, there was no, oh my God, like how can we make you feel better? It really was just, you're gonna cry right now in public
Yeah.
on the top of the skyscraper, surrounded by like 200 other tourists.
Great.
Like fantastic.
No time like the present.
No time. This
Um
I need to feel this. Let's let it
I
happen.
think I've told you this, and I just think it's so funny. Um Whenever I'm sad, I always want soup. I don't know why. It's like I'm sad, I'm getting soup. I don't care if it's 100 degrees out, I'm getting soup.
Okay.
Um So I there's like one place because it's Durango, it's small. So I like my one place that I go for my soup when I'm sad. The issue is like the same people who work there every time I'm sad, and so I think they just like think that my life is like falling apart, and I just like am always crying about something, which is like it's like they don't unfortunately they don't get to see the joy of the day after. They just get to see me showing up crying to order soup. And it's just like I would love to know the perspective of like who I am,
Yeah, like
and
in
then being
their
like,
world.
yeah, like in their world or in their mind. And it's like I have more of a like identity in life outside of just crying every time I order soup, but like that's the only time they ever see me, and
That's who you
there's
are to
something I
them.
find really funny about that.
I do really like the like I am sad. I will go to this one place and get soup every time I am sad.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're like really sweet. Like there's one person though who I'm like I can never tell if they're hitting on me or if they're just like concerned. They might just be concerned if I'm crying every time I go there to get soup.
They're like, I don't think I could handle being in a relationship with this woman. She's sad a
Yeah, she's
lot.
crying all the time. Every time I see her, she's crying. But it's always like, are you okay? And I'm always like, nope, I am not. And it's like, do you want to talk about it? And I'm always like, nope, I'm just here for my soup on my sad girl day. Like, just give me my soup.
It's like a hot girl walk, but it's a sad girl day.
Yeah, sad girl day. Yeah.
Uh, Okay, so this is reminding me of one of the phone calls that we had in the midst of the heartbreak on one of your
There are
big
many.
sad days.
There are many.
And because both of us have had experiences pre-therapy, pre-embodiment where we were good at pushing it down. We were
Oh,
good
yeah.
at numbing ourselves. We were good at being like, nope, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm just going to put it in a neat little box and like never feel it.
Yep.
And I just remember you being so pissed that you have healed so much that you are now unable to put it away the way that you used to because your body knows you need to feel it and you need to feel it right now and you know you're supposed to accept it and let the feeling be there and you're like it's just so much easier to push it all away and like why don't I have the ability to do that anymore? And I was like literally same.
I do remember that phone call, and I remember that feeling being so real. Because it's like,
Mhm.
I think also with like any big loss, but especially like heartbreak, it's like you reach a point where you're like, I'm fucking tired of being sad. I'm tired of feeling this intensely. I'm feeling insane because of how strongly I'm feeling this. And I just want to like have a good day. And yeah, and it's like, yeah, once you get to, and like, not to scare people away from healing.
Yeah. Because it is healing because you can actually move through it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, yes, I can no longer ignore it. But that also, like I said, that also makes room for like genuine joy when like it's able to show up because I don't have this like backlog of grief and pain. It's like I'm experiencing it in real time and I'm going through it. And it like sometimes also when I say like, how is this grief asking me to show up? Sometimes it's being angry at the grief, and that's like all I can manage. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
I'm going to be with the hating this feeling. I'm going to be with like, I'm just going to allow myself to feel the fact that I'm angry about the fact that I'm healed
Mhm.
or healing. I don't think anyone's like like fully healed, but
Yeah.
or maybe there are. I don't know. I'm not there yet. Who knows? Um, yeah, but yeah, just being with this, like, I feel things so deeply. I think I always have felt things deeply.
It was just better at ignoring it.
I was really good at ignoring it, but I ignored it, like, but I was so miserable. Like, yes, that's the interesting thing. It's like I ignored all of the pain, but I was so miserable.
Because you weren't actually making it go away. You were just pretending it didn't exist and it just got stuck in your system. Versus, I'm going to cry in this inconvenient space, but then I'm going to move forward and I'm not going to be holding on to it much
Yeah,
longer.
and I'm gonna allow it, and I'm not gonna shame myself for feeling this. Whereas I'm just thinking back to when I did like push everything down. It's like, I'm sure a lot of people have heard, I don't know what the exact quote is or where it comes from, but it's talking about like you can't selectively numb emotions. So you don't get to just numb the difficult stuff. You numb everything across the board. And so when I think back to that time in my life, when I was really good at pushing down the pain and numbing and all of that, I was never happy. And it's like, yeah, I was in this kind of like monochromatic emotional state where it's like, yeah, I had some ups and downs, but it was like not enjoyable. And it's, I think not really feeling like alive in a lot of ways. And now that I've gotten, I mean, I still feel like I'm kind of in that post breakup stage. Things are starting to shift, but definitely have some days. But now I'm at this point where I actually have a lot of gratitude for the heartbreak and the pain, which sounds kind of weird.
What are you grateful for?
Yeah, I'm grateful for it because I think it allowed me to, I don't know, meet or see my own heart and like my own capacity for love, and to just be like, wow, like I am alive. Like I am feeling all of my emotions to their fullest. And what a gift to be able to do that. And what a gift that like this heartbreak and this pain is because I was able to open my heart and love something so deeply. And like I there was a time in my life where I never thought that like I was capable of that or that I would ever have that experience of loving someone. And so it's like, yeah, even though, you know, grief is the price you pay for love, it's like I would gladly pay it again. Even though I have phone calls where I call you and I'm like, this is fucking stupid and I want this to be over and
I never want to feel this again.
I don't want to be healed and I never want to feel this again. But then in the more grounded moments, it's like actually I'm really grateful that this ended in some ways because it's asked me to continue to grow in different ways and to like return to myself and
And then on the other side of the extreme, it's like, but I want it so bad that I'm just going to be alone forever. And it's just like grief and the fear of the unknown as
oh
well.
yeah. That's where I'm currently in a lot of the time is like we've moved from like acute like this hurts and I just have to feel the pain of it to like, oh, I have some hope for the future without this person and I have I'm like looking forward to the future and I'm like really building my life the way I want. I'm being intentional in new ways and having all
But
these
you
growth moments
want it.
and I want it and I'm so afraid that I'm not going to get it or that oh that was as good as it's going to get. There's no one else out there for me that's going to check most of the boxes or that's going to, you know,
Mhm.
meet my non-negotiables.
Yeah.
So now we're kind of moving into that fear of like, oh fuck, I'm on my own.
Yeah.
And who know like I don't know the future. Like maybe there isn't someone else. Maybe there is, like, but I don't know. And so now it's like, okay, how can I show up with the unknown? How can I show up in this fear?
Well, and this is a space that I know well
Yes.
because even as I've been dating my current partner, and I mean, I talked to you when I was single before I met him, and
Yep.
just knowing exactly what I was looking for in terms of energy, in terms of effort, in terms of values. Not like, he needs to be this tall or she needs to have this colored eyes. Just like, no, I want a person who embodies this kind of feeling. And this
Yeah.
is how I want to feel when I'm with a person that I want to be with. And I don't know who they're going to be, but I'm not going to settle for something else.
Yeah.
And even though I think I've come pretty close to finding that person. And like we've been together for years now, and every single time my anxious brain is like, yeah, but you know he's going to react like this. No, he reacts the way that makes me feel safer. Like every single time pretty much. And yet, this is the part of my brain is like, yeah, but can you trust it? Yeah,
Mm,
but is it real? Yeah, but is this actually what you want to look for? Or are you just being blinded by some of the good stuff? And it has taken so long to heal all of those past hurts that led to all that fear.
yeah. Ugh, I'm just like, oh man, I'm tired. I don't want to date right now.
And you don't have to. Maybe what you need right now is to not date.
Yeah. But it's like it's a funny place to be though, being like I have hope for the future. I know that this is what I want and I am absolutely not ready to go after it right now.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
and then a fear that like when I do go after it, like is it even going to be there?
Hmm.
I think something that's been like really important for me, and this was even before this most recent relationship when I was single for 2.5 years, was like my, like this fear, like, oh, I'm never going to find someone. I think a lot of times, a lot of my friends and people are like trying to be helpful and being like, no, there is someone out there for you. There is. And what I find more helpful is like, okay, but if there's not, I will still be okay. And I am actively trying to build a life that feels full and fulfilling and like good for me so that even if I don't end up like finding another person or whatever, like I can still be satisfied
Hmm.
and content and happy and that like it doesn't rely on another person. Because then I think the magic is then that like if someone else does come along or show up or we have this connection, like I'm not looking to them for all my fulfillment. It's like, no, I already have a fulfilling life. I just want you to like come along for the ride.
I want to choose you to be in my life, not because I need you, but because I want you there.
Yeah. And
Can I read
hopefully like
you
they go ahead. Yeah.
the Ruby Kaur poem that I read to you way back in COVID, probably, where it's like, this is what I want, this is what I need.
Yeah.
Are you ready for it? You ready?
I'm ready.
I do not want to have you to fill the empty parts of me. I want to be full on my own. I want to be so complete I could light a whole city. And then I want to have you, because the two of us combined could set it on fire.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know why, but in my head, I'm like, that sounds nice, and it might not exist. That's just where I'm at right now. Um,
That's totally okay to be there.
yeah, I'm actually thinking of part of a different poem by Andrea Gibson, who actually just passed a couple days ago, who was the Colorado Poet Laureate. And they were, I think one of their poems said, like, I have no intention of leaving this world without a broken heart.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, there was like more to the poem, and that probably is not the exact quote. But
No, I agree. I was listening to them talk about how learning to love life and embrace the hurt and
mhm,
embrace the joy and embrace everything we're talking about allowed them to not be afraid of losing it. Like
yeah.
the more they accepted it, the more they opened up to it, the less they feared that it might not be there because they were feeling more and more whole as they continued to live.
Yeah, and weirdly, I think that applies to like the way I kind of feel about relationships in general is like in this last relationship, like there were times when I was like, this could end. And then in my mind, I was like, okay, well, then I want to be as in this as I can. Like, I want to be as fully like open and like, yes, and granted, to be fair, I had not been through real heartbreak before, so I didn't know what I was signing up for when I decided this. But it was like, yeah, like if this relationship could end tomorrow, this person could die tomorrow. That like there's so many unknowns that it's like I want to be fully in this relationship and I want to like be open and I want to be loving and I want to like get whatever experience I can out of this so that like even if it ended tomorrow, like I could know that like I don't know, like that it was full and that it was meaningful and had all this depth and I like yeah, I'm really glad that that's the approach I took even though it did end and it was really heartbreaking and it really fucking hurt.
You know, I'm thinking back to one of my last relationships where I wanted that and
Mhm.
I just kept getting met with a wall.
Yeah.
I was just like, no, I'm not meeting you there. No, I'm not having that experience with you. No, I'm not doing this thing. And it's like, I wasn't allowed to have that experience that you just described so beautifully. And, this, I'm very happy in my current relationship. I am excited for what's going to happen next. And I went into it going both feet in, let's be present, let's make the most out of
Mhm.
this. And like once a month, I look at my life and I do a check in. I'm going, one of my feet went out the door again. Oh, I'm freaking out again. Oh, I need to like decide intentionally how I want to show up here because it's so natural to want to protect yourself.
Mhm.
And choosing to put both feet in and to be fully present in whatever the experience is so scary. It is
Oh my god,
so
it's terrifying.
scary.
Especially now that I know what I was signing up for.
Yeah, the hurt is awful. And so, having experienced it, it's so hard to find somebody that fills that hope and then trying I this is how I said it to you and what I'm working on is instead of listening to the fear and being curious about the dreamer, I'm trying to listen to the dreamer in me and be curious about the fear. That way, I'm not being driven by the fear and believing the fear, but going, okay, fear, I see you. Maybe I need to be a little bit more anxious today or worried about what this might mean. But like, my dreamer is so excited and pumped and wants to move in this direction. We're going to do that and be
Yeah.
present, both feet in. Let's see what happens. Because if it hurts, it's going to hurt anyway. I
Yep.
might as well enjoy the ride.
Yeah. As you're talking to it makes me think of also just like in relationships and I think any relationship, like how different each person's experience can be in that because I think I had a very different experience than my partner did. And that's like not good or bad. It's just like an acknowledgement. Like, I think we had a very different experience of this relationship. And like, that's okay. Yeah. And how I think like a big part of me kind of moving through this heartbreak is acknowledging that, but then allowing for the like for that to be okay. Like it's okay that we weren't both like 2 feet in, fully, like in it, and like this was a really profound. relationship for me and a really meaningful, deep thing for me. And I don't know what her experience was fully. Like, we haven't really discussed that. And also, I don't want to speak for her, like, talk about that. But I suspect that, like, she felt very differently. And just trying to be like, and that's okay. Because, like, at this point, it doesn't really matter what her experience was. Like, so much of this relationship or any relationship is about what I'm doing, how I'm showing up in it, how I'm growing from it. And so in the breakup, it's really about, like, okay, what can I take from that? Like, what parts of myself did I meet in this relationship that I want to hold on to? What parts of myself maybe did I not like as much that I want to look at? Like, all these different components of, okay, like, what was my experience in that? And, like, can I validate that for myself without needing to have, like, quote unquote closure or validation from her or anyone else about, like, whether or not this was meaningful?
I think that's beautiful because you're right. We all show up differently, and being grounded and healing and feeling what I need to feel and like looking back on my past relationships, I can understand to a point why my exes showed up the way they did and why maybe that's the only thing or the
Mm-hmm.
only way that they could show up and the only space that they were able to meet me in. But thinking about how you said earlier that this relationship helped you realize that you have this deeper capacity to love. Not like, well, can she love me back or can she even accept my love? But like, I have the ability to give this. I have the ability to show up in this way. And that's a very similar realization that I had before going into my current relationship of like, I know what I'm able to give. I know the effort that I put towards relationships. I am so curious. I want to understand your inner world. I want to know who you are and what matters to you and how that shifts with every life experience. I want to grow with somebody, not just be with somebody. And it's
Yeah.
like that capacity within me deserves to be met and seen, you know?
100%. It's funny too, because, like, now it's like, yeah, I think that, we had some incompatibilities in that area, but I didn't know that when we started dating. Like, I learned that because we dated.
Hmm.
And if we hadn't, like, I probably wouldn't have learned that about myself. And I wouldn't have been ready for something different. Or, like, I wouldn't have been ready for, because I didn't know that looking for, or that's what I wanted. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, I'm really grateful for the entire experience, including the pain and heartbreak, because it's like, okay, this showed me that I have something, like, that something really meaningful and profound was here for me, and that was really important, and I really wanted it, and, like, that's okay that it didn't happen.
But I want to piggyback off of that because I think that we as humans have this beautiful capacity to hunt for meaning. We want to be able to understand everything that is happening to us, even if it doesn't make sense or even if that meaning is just made up. We can take something from every experience we have, from every relationship that we have. And if we can find a meaning in it that is meaningful to us, not necessarily meaningful to everyone else, we can move forward with it and we can grow and heal in that. And it's so beautiful.
Yeah. In my last relationship, maybe there were things that happened that, like, maybe there was no meaning, and that's okay. And, like, not everything, you don't have to make meaning out of everything, but I think that it can be really helpful for processing and moving forward, because, yeah, like you said, like, as humans, we're meaning makers. We like when there's meaning behind something.
Well, and even as you say that, of like, well, maybe there wasn't meaning in like my previous relationship, but maybe that relationship taught you to accept it as it is. And it doesn't always have to have a deeper meaning. Like you could always find what it meant to you, even if the relationship itself wasn't actually for that.
Yeah, look at you making meaning out of non-meaning.
Yeah, I'm great at
um
it.
you're a therapist, aren't you?
I am. Or
um
even just like, I need to listen to my knowing more because I knew it was wrong for way long before I ended it. well, next time I'm going to actually check in around it. Like that's still you learning about yourself.
Yeah, I think more I'm just saying that like I think that not everything that happened in the relationship had to have meaning.
Yeah.
It's like yes, I think overall I've made a lot of meaning out of that relationship and a lot of growth and everything. But then there are also like individual things within that relationship where it's like actually maybe that can just exist without me having to dissect it or process it in that way. Maybe like the
Yeah.
way to move through that was just to feel.
I agree with that for sure, especially thinking about my last relationship of like, you know what? That probably didn't need to happen. And it did. And I'm just going to have to let that exist. But like,
Yep.
I think I would have been fine without it.
Yeah. It's like actually I didn't need to go through that, but that's okay.
Hmm. So let's talk about this next phase that you are entering, right? You've found some meaning, you have found this shift, you've had this moment of actually, maybe we aren't meant for each other, even if it still fluctuates, even if you still have this push or pull. Like a part of you is looking forward, going, I know what I want now, and I know
Hmm.
that this is what I'm going to be looking for next. But I'm curious what it's like experiencing that shift.
It's so weird. I think like I don't know what's coming to mind is like a big part of it too is I feel like because we ended amicably and like pretty well and like also I live in a small town, like our kind of intention I think is probably to eventually be friends and I have run into her a few times around town and yeah, it's just been interesting being like, oh, like the pull towards her is not as strong as it used to be or it's different or sometimes it doesn't really feel like it's there at all. And it's just like I think there's kind of this disconnect between like my expectation of what I should quote unquote be experiencing right now in the breakup versus what I'm actually experiencing because being so heartbroken and like grieving so much and then having days where like I run into her and it's like oh actually like I could just be friends and I feel okay about that and I'm very confused by that. But I'm gonna like just kind of feel it out and see what happens. And then it's also really nice though having days where it's like, oh, I feel like I have more mental space
Hmm.
where I can just like hope for the future or plan or think about things that are more centered around me rather than like a relationship. And yeah, there's like some nice something nice about being able to hope for the future, whatever it looks like, whether
Yeah.
that's like like I said, I'm like, I do not want to date right now. And that goes for like, even if I feel like, even if she were to come back and be like, I want to date, I'd be like, I don't know about right now. I'm kind of liking this, like being on my own a little bit.
And I
Yeah.
think that is such a great example of your past does not have to dictate your future. At any point, you're allowed to change your mind or want something
Yep.
different or have a different experience. And even if you are connected to this person through your history and how you've experienced life together for however long you've done it, that doesn't mean that tomorrow you have to feel that same connection in that same way. And really, if you can just show up and be present and let exist whatever it exists, you're going to be able to shift within that experience and choose what you want your future to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think trying to be more open to, I don't know what that looks like. I don't, which is like a really hard practice for me. I think throughout the relationship and then in the breakup, my biggest like practice that I had was like, can I be with what's happening right now and not be so concerned about the future? And so, even though I'm saying like I have hope for the future and I'm looking forward, I'm also really trying to be like, okay, how can I be present and build my life right now?
Mm,
And where can I find contentment and joy? And where can I like be present with what's going on right now? And just noticing that like what is present for me these days is shifting and it's a lot less painful and a lot less um just like a lot less uncomfortable. I
yeah.
mean there's still those times and moments and whatnot, but it's just like being able to be with that shift and to allow it to happen without being like, oh, I'm gonna only have good days from now on.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, I'm just noticing that like the days are feeling a little bit easier.
Well,
Um,
and I'm tying it to what you said when we were talking about the feeling of being in the heartbreak and how you had to have those moments of letting yourself hope of like, well, maybe we can get back together or maybe we can make it work. And it's like I didn't believe it to be true, but I held the hope lightly and I let it exist. It's like you
mhm.
have hope for the future and what you want to happen next, but you're holding it lightly and you're
Yeah,
not trying to force it to happen, but you're holding the hope and being with the present moment and letting right now exist as it is.
yeah, yeah. So I'm like, I don't even know. I feel like I've listened to so many different, podcast episodes and seen things on social media about like how to get through a breakup and I think ultimately for me, it's like just like holding whatever's here like lightly
Mhm.
and like meeting it with gentleness, whatever it is, whether that's, hope or sadness or anger. It's just like I don't have a nice little, like get over heartbreak in 3 steps or do this and feel better. It's like, I don't know, just it's more like you gotta just kind of be with yourself and allow it to be okay however you are.
Be who you are in that moment and don't try to do it on a timeline because your body is going to do it on its own timeline, whether you're trying to make it happen differently or not. Might as well accept it.
Yeah, and just being like, all right, well, it's been a few months and I'm still crying, and that's fine.
And that's where you call your best friend who can accept you in whatever headspace. And she'll be like, well, you just need to be sad today, I guess. Let's do it.
Yeah. Or just being like, hey, I know I talked to you about this all verbatim literally last week, but we're going to go through it all again.
And have that
Um,
safe person who's like, all right, let's go through it again.
let's do it. Um, Groundhog Day. Um,
Hey, it's one of my favorite movies.
that checks out, actually, yeah.
This is how I can be a therapist. Okay, I have no problem just seeing the same thing over and over because it's what helps
Yeah.
us heal.
Yeah, I feel like there is a difference between like ruminating and like processing, and they I think can sound and feel pretty similar. And so I'm like, maybe, like maybe you have some more input as like a more seasoned therapist, but I think like just personal experience, it's like rumination is for me, it can be very like focused on like what did I do wrong? What could I do differently? What could I do better? Um, Whereas like processing through is more like, okay, I'm feeling this now. I'm going to process what I'm currently feeling and trusting that it'll move through and not necessarily like getting bogged. I don't know. I feel like there's
Yeah,
like a difference.
I agree with that. And I feel like there is kind of a place for both, depending on where you're at in your journeys. Because the way I'm processing what you're saying and adding my own perspective on it, I feel like rumination is almost getting caught up in the details of what happened. Like what was said, how did we react? What actually happened here? And like how could I have fixed it? How could I have done it differently? And sometimes you need to loop through those details in order to be able to get to a point of like I'm so sick of thinking about it this way, then you're going to actually broaden that focus and be able to process what happened. And that isn't explicitly what are the details of it. Like I was literally talking to someone earlier this week of as a therapist, if someone loses regulation in session or if they have like 1,000 questions for me, I care less about what explicitly caused the dysregulation or what the actual question or answer was, and more, how did you respond to it? When you were being dysregulated, what thoughts were going through your mind? Like how was the experience of those details for you more than what the details actually were? Because that's like the deeper rising over it, looking at the process. Is that how you want to continue showing up? You think you did it perfectly? All right, well then keep going. But you could also say, "Ooh, wow, I really reacted strongly to that one comment. What happened there? What can I learn about myself from that?" Or like, wow, when I tried to show up curiously, they shut me down and insulted me. I hated how that felt. Now I know next time that if anybody reacts that way, that's probably going to be a no for me. So, like, the rumination is stuck in the details, and the processing is still looping, but it's almost looping on that broader spectrum.
Yeah, I think that feels like an important distinction. I also would come to mind for me, I like that you said that like rumination does have its place. Um, because I think, especially early on in the breakup, I was like ruminating. I didn't really recognize that that was what it was because it wasn't like a narration or like a storyline. It was just like moments that I kept replaying, and I didn't understand why I kept going back to those. And then, I don't know, some weeks later, I all of a sudden just had this like realization of like, oh, she was never going to like do this thing, or she was never going to feel this way that like I wanted. And then the rumination stopped because it was like, and then I realized, retrospectively, like, oh, I was ruminating because I was trying to figure out what I could have done differently.
And the answer was you couldn't because you were different people showing up in different ways.
But I think that you're right that it took kind of repeating that and getting tired of the repetition in order to come to this other realization to let it go. But yeah, I think you hit it on the head of a big part of I think moving through it is like, yeah, getting curious and asking yourself like, okay, but how am I relating to this feeling? How am I relating to the rumination? How am I relating to the heartbreak? Rather than like just reacting to it and getting sucked into it without the curiosity.
Yeah. And like one of my favorite tools as a therapist is engaging in that because like a client will come in after like a really upsetting experience. And again, maybe they need to ruminate. So I give it a couple sessions of rumination and like processing it with them in that way. And then I finally kind of pause and go, hey, so I know we've talked about all these details. Can we pause in the details for a second? What do you think about how you're processing this? I won't even go to the moment. I'll go to the last couple sessions,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of like, how are you showing up in that? What do you think about that? And I do that for myself. If I can't find the words in a disagreement, or there's clearly a miscommunication, and there's like this huge, intense feeling inside of me, I will just let it sit. Be like, I need to sit with the fact that that is how I reacted and be curious about where that is coming from. Not actually what I said, not actually what my partner said, but like, how am I showing up in that and what can I take from that?
Yeah. It's like, yeah, that's like really powerful. I think like it's really the most like powerful part of that too is like when you're able to do that for yourself.
Hmm.
A big part of that like for me was you being in therapy and actually becoming a therapist as well, and then taking it and practicing it on myself of like, okay, yeah, how am I showing up in this? How do I want to? Let me be curious. And I don't know where I was going with that, but
That's okay. My brain is connecting it back. The big theme of today is wherever you are, be there, right? If you're needing to ruminate, let yourself ruminate. Once you get sick of it, it's a cue that maybe you're somewhere else. When you're feeling upset, let yourself be upset. But then when you're able to be curious, let yourself be curious. Just whatever your experience is, let it be that, and then be curious about it.
mm-hmm. And I think also trusting that like another like kind of mantra that's helped me throughout this experience has been like when there is something that feels really big or difficult or uncomfortable, I just like tell myself like I can ride this wave. Like even if it feels like a tsunami and I'm drowning in it, like I know it'll pass. And then I can give myself permission to like be curious after it's passed. But yeah, just being where you are now, like you said.
So there you have it. The way to get through a breakup is to actually give yourself permission to go through the breakup. You can do this. And whatever your experience is, even if it changes from day to day or minute to minute, it is okay and it is normal. Take a breath and focus in on yourself, the person you want to become, and the life you want to build. And slowly, over time, you will be able to hold the grief differently. Hopefully, something we talked about today resonated with you. If it did, let yourself sit with that idea for a little while longer. If you have any questions or themes you'd like us to focus on in the future, send us a message on Instagram at Insights With Us Podcast, or send us an email at insightswithus@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to hear more, please follow, like, or subscribe. If you want to support the continuation of this podcast, you can donate. To do so, find me, Anastasia Soroka, on buymeacoffee.com. You can also find Insights With Us on Substack for exclusive content, including videos, transcripts from these episodes, which will slowly be released, and other writings about my insight journey. You can find digital downloads on my website, happymindwellness.com. Right now, you can get a values brainstorm for just $1. So overall, just thank you for being my adventure buddy. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you for creating insight with us.